Hello, favorite grandchildren, and all the favorite children in the world who might get a chance to hear this wonderful story about Amelia Bedelia. It's time to shake a stick, Amelia Bedelia. And who doesn't know what that means? Well, let's turn the page and find out. Amelia Bedelia Goes Camping by Peggy Parrish. And there they are having a picnic at the campground. Okay. Hurry up, Amelia Bedelia. Let's see how I can move here. I'm coming, said Amelia Bedelia. Did we get everything? Asked Mrs. Rogers. I would say so, said Amelia Bedelia. Don't you just love her name? Maybe you should say it to yourself or out loud a few times. Good, said Mr. Rogers. It's time to hit the road. Hit the road? Asked Amelia Bedelia. All right. She picked up a stick and Amelia Bedelia hit that road. Stop that, shouted Mr. Rogers. Get into the car. Amelia Bedelia got into the car. I'm so excited, she said. I have never been camping. You will have fun, said Mrs. Rogers. Have you ever been camping? Have you slept in a tent? Have you slept in a sleeping bag? They rode for a long time. Finally, Mr. Rogers stopped the car. Wake up, Amelia Bedelia, said Mrs. Rogers. This is it. Amelia Bedelia looked all around. But where is the camp? She asked. The camp is in the car, said Mr. Rogers. Do you know what that means? And what do you think Amelia Bedelia thinks about that? In the car, said Amelia Bedelia. We're going to camp in the car? The things we need to make the camp are in the car, said Mr. Rogers. Make the camp, said Amelia Bedelia. We have to make the camp? Just forget it, said Mr. Rogers. I will put the tent here. We can pitch it later. All right, said Amelia Bedelia. That's one of my favorite parts of the story too, about pitching the tent. Now, let's have some fun, said Mr. Rogers. Let's catch some fish. I've never caught a fish, said Amelia Bedelia. Is it like catching a ball? Mr. Rogers laughed. It's more fun, he said. I will show you how. And we like to fish off the dock at Grandma Sue's cottage, don't we? And what do those fish like to eat? That's right, cheese balls. It's so much fun to watch those fish eating cheese balls. Did you bring any cookies? Asked Mrs. Rogers. Yes, said Amelia Bedelia. I made up a new kind. Amelia Bedelia got the cookies. Chocolate, said Mr. Rogers, my favorite. He took a bite. They are so crunchy, he said. That's the potato chips, said Amelia Bedelia. I do love potato chips. I put in a whole bag. I call them chocolate chip cookies. Makes sense to me. Mr. and Mrs. Rogers looked at each other. Call them what you like, said Mrs. Rogers. Just make them often. Bring them along and follow me, said Mr. Rogers. Let's find a good fishing spot. They walked along the bank. After a bit, Mr. Rogers stopped. He looked at the water. He said, this looks good. You have time to see the photos? Amelia Bedelia stopped. I see one. I see a fish. And she said, I'll catch it. But Mr. Rogers was too late. Amelia Bedelia was in the water. There she is. Mr. Rogers had said, wait. I kind of skipped over that part. But you could figure it out. There she goes into the water with all her clothes on. Here, fishy, fishy. Here, fishy, fishy, she called. And then she grabbed a fish. I caught it, she yelled. What a big one, said Mrs. Rogers. Amelia Bedelia looked at the fish. The fish looked at Amelia Bedelia. There they are, looking at each other. All right, said Amelia Bedelia. Away you go. The fish swam away. Amelia Bedelia, yelled Mr. Rogers. Why did you do that? Amelia Bedelia looked surprised. Why not? She said. You said to catch a fish. I did that. Oh, go away, said Mr. Rogers. Thank you, said Amelia Bedelia. I am wet. I do need to change. Amelia Bedelia started to leave. Oh, Amelia Bedelia, said Mrs. Rogers. Please start a fire in the grill. Use pine cones to start it, said Mr. Rogers. And put on some coffee. All right, said Amelia Bedelia. I wonder what kinds of things that Amelia Bedelia is going to do now. She always takes everything very literally. Amelia Bedelia walked to the car. She changed into dry clothes. Now, said Amelia Bedelia, I will surprise Mr. Rogers. I'll pitch that tent. She walked over to the tent. Shoot, said Amelia Bedelia. I can't even lift it. Need some help? Shouted someone. Amelia Bedelia turned around. Who are you? She asked. I'm Harry, said one boy. I'm Mike, said the other boy. I'm Amelia Bedelia, said Amelia Bedelia. Amelia Bedelia, said Harry. We've heard about you. You have? Said Amelia Bedelia. That's nice. Now will you help me pitch this tent? Where do you want to pitch it? Asked Mike. The big thing is to pitch it, said Amelia Bedelia. It can come down where it wants to. The boys grinned at each other. Okay, let's do it. They caught hold of the tent. They all picked it up. And they pitched that tent. Hooray, said Amelia Bedelia. We did it. Maybe we should pitch it again, said Mike. Why, said Amelia Bedelia. It's in the bushes, said Harry. That's a good place for it, said Amelia Bedelia. It's out of the way. Oh, she's so silly. Have you ever pitched a tent? Yeah, so you know what that means, don't you? Hey, said Mike, Mom is calling us. Thank you for helping me, said Amelia Bedelia. She watched the boys go. I had better get that fire started, said Amelia Bedelia. She got some wood and some pine cones. She put them in the grill. Time to turn the page. Live and learn, said Amelia Bedelia. I didn't know pine cones could start a fire. I want to see this. Amelia Bedelia sat down. But the fire did not start. Suddenly she jumped up. The coffee, she said. I forgot to put on the coffee. She poured the coffee grounds over the pine cones. Now it should start, she said. What do you think? Do coffee grounds make a fire start? Mr. and Mrs. Rogers walked up. Why isn't the fire burning? Said Mrs. Rogers. The pine cones haven't started it yet, said Amelia Bedelia. Did you try using a match? Said Mr. Rogers. You didn't tell me to do that, said Amelia Bedelia. Never mind, I'll do it, said Mr. Rogers. You put on some coffee? I did, said Amelia Bedelia. Didn't I put on enough? Where did she put that coffee on? Oh, that Amelia Bedelia. Oh, go jump in the lake, said Mr. Rogers. Amelia Bedelia stamped her foot. Can you stamp your foot? I will not, she said. I have no more dry clothes. Mr. Rogers laughed. He said, you win. Can you row a boat? Certainly, said Amelia Bedelia. Use any of the boats, said Mr. Rogers. Have some fun. How do you row a boat? Amelia Bedelia found the boats. I'll just use all of them, she said. She pushed the boats this way and that. The boats were rowed, or in other words, in a row. What is she going to do next? Whoops, let's see. Kind of skipped a page here. All right. Amelia Bedelia went back to Mr. and Mrs. Rogers. That was fun, she said. What is next? I need the tent stakes, said Mr. Rogers. I'll get them, said Amelia Bedelia. She brought back a package. Here, said Amelia Bedelia. Mr. Rogers opened the packet. What in tarnation, he said. Didn't I cut them right, said Amelia Bedelia. They look like tents to me. Tent stakes, huh? Go figure. How am I going to pitch the tent? Asked Mr. Rogers. Don't fret, said Amelia Bedelia. I pitched the tent. Mr. Rogers looked. Where is the tent? In the bushes, said Amelia Bedelia, just where it landed. Oh, there it is. Tweet, 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 says the bluebird. That does it, shouted Mr. Rogers. He stamped off. Mrs. Rogers went with him. Why is he so upset? Asked Amelia Bedelia. I was just trying to help him. Mr. and Mrs. Rogers came back. It's all right, Amelia Bedelia, said Mrs. Rogers. We can sleep under the stars. Now what? I'll help you get the sleeping bag, said Mr. Rogers. I can do it, said Amelia Bedelia. She went to the car. Amelia Bedelia came back slowly. She was carrying some bags. Shh, she whispered. I think they are sleeping, but how can you tell? Is that what your sleeping bag looks like? Mr. and Mrs. Rogers stared at Amelia Bedelia. Then Mrs. Rogers said, Never mind, Amelia Bedelia. I'll get this camp in ship shape, said Mr. Rogers. That sounds like fun, said Amelia Bedelia. What kind of ship shape will we make? You have done enough, said Mr. Rogers. I'll do this. Amelia Bedelia walked away. I don't know much about camping, she said, but I do know one thing. It's time to eat. Amelia Bedelia bustled around. She did this and that. Finally, she had everything ready. Mr. and Mrs. Rogers, called Amelia Bedelia. It's time to eat. I'm sure ready, said Mrs. Rogers. She and Mr. Rogers came. Fried chicken, stuffed eggs, said Mr. Rogers. What a feast. All three ate and ate. Now I'm stuffed, said Mr. Rogers. There's one more thing, said Amelia Bedelia. I'll go and get it. What a picnic that is. Soon she came back singing, Happy birthday to you. My birthday, said Mr. Rogers. I forgot my birthday. Blow out the candle, said Mrs. Rogers, and cut the cake. Mr. Rogers did just that. Then he said, Amelia Bedelia, this is the best camping trip ever. Amelia Bedelia smiled. Let's do it again, she said. I do love camping. And that is the end of Amelia Bedelia Goes Camping. And it's time to hit the road, Amelia Bedelia. So get out your sticks and hit the road next time you're going on a car trip. Goodbye, everyone, and see you next time. I love you all so much. You are the best children in the whole wide world. Higher, deeper, longer, more than skidamarinka-dink-a-dink. Oh, I could go on forever about how much Grandma Sue thinks about you. Take care, and I'll see you with the next story. And I think it'll be another Amelia Bedelia book. Thank you. Love you. Goodbye.